Let's just dive right in. We have a great lineup for today. So the highlights are GDPR and customer privacy. And first up, we have Todd Redfoot. He is our Chief Privacy and Risk Officer, and he's going to cover the overview and rights, features, and consent with regards to GDPR. Then Todd will turn it over to Manish, and Manish is a Senior Product Manager of Domains, and he's going to be reviewing the changes made with regards to domains. And then we'll conclude that portion of our new business highlights, and then we'll turn it over to Chelsea, who's going to give her monthly update on the reseller platform. And then finally, we're going to wrap with Q&A. So as a reminder, the webinar is recorded, so in case you need to jump off at any time, or if you joined late and missed the beginning, we'll be posting the recording for you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Todd. And Todd, if you want to share your screen.
All right, is the screen coming through okay?
Yes, it is.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Christina. So I'm Todd Redfoot. Glad to be here today. I want to cover GDPR, what it means for you as a reseller. First, a legal disclaimer. The materials I'm going to cover today are for informational purposes only and not for the purpose of providing legal advice. It's not intended to be a full and exhaustive explanation of GDPR or the law in any area, nor should it be used to replace advice of your own legal counsel. So the agenda today, GDPR overview, talk a little about what it is, when it went into effect. We'll then jump into customer rights and company obligations, which are really what GDPR is all about. We'll then frame that up from a customer perspective, right? What are your customers seeing now that they hadn't seen before on the storefront to support GDPR? What you saw in the control center, right, on or around the 25th, some new features rolled out to help you in the GDPR journey. And last, we'll wrap up with useful links and some information that will help you after the call, which we'll also post in the video. So jumping right in, GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It was consolidation of multiple data protection laws across Europe. So a lot of these principles were already in play, but different laws for different regions and different countries. So GDPR brought those all together, standardized it, really focused around where the data subject resides, not where the company does business. And this is often misunderstood. Companies that I talk to often think they don't have to worry about GDPR because they're companies in the US. It's not about the company itself, it's about the customer and where the customer says they reside or what they're resident of. So keep that in mind as we go. GDPR guaranteed certain rights and obligation to those customers to process their personal data. We'll go deep in that area. This went into effect a few weeks ago, just shy of 2 weeks, on May 25th. And last, non-compliance carries penalties and fines, much more than previous laws did. The most egregious acts can cause up to 20 million euros or 4% of worldwide annual revenue, whichever of the two is higher. So consolidation of multiple laws and really centered around the customer and giving the regulations some teeth in the forms of fines if you're non-compliant. Digging into the 8 principles of GDPR, customer rights. First one is transparency. As a customer, I need to know and understand what happens to my data. Moving on to number 2, consent. Now that I know what's happening, I need to be able to choose or consent to what data is being collected about me and what activities I want to participate in. I also have the ability to then change that choice. Principle number 3, update and erasure. Now that you have my data, I have the right to keep it rectified or updated. And I also have the right to request deletion if I decide to close my account and move on. And principle number 4, if I do decide to move on, I should be able to export and take my data elsewhere in a portable format, right? So that we can't hold your data hostage. We have to give the customer a path to easily take data that they might need to move their services to another provider. On the company side, the right-hand side of the screen, as a company, we are obligated to safeguard that customer data now that we have it under due care, principle number 5. We're also obligated to minimize it, so only ask for what we need and only keep it for as long as we need it, right, to minimize the risk of data exposure. Principle number 7, notification. If we do have an issue, we need to communicate data breaches very quickly. We'll go deeper into that later. And last, principle number 8, is really to build privacy by design, incorporate all these principles, both the customer and the company obligations, in all the new activities, new products, or any third-party interactions. So that's GDPR at a glance, and the customer element as well as the company element. So to go into the customer rights, I wanted to show off some of the storefront features that start to help to check those boxes and provide those rights to our customers and to your customers. So under transparency, once again, tell me what you're going to do with my data. We had some requirements, transparency, to tell the customers exactly what it's used for in common language. So no more lawyer speak, had to be very clear, concise, easy to consume. Also searchable, so it can't be hidden in a doc in the corner. It should be something readily available and easy to find. And last, we needed to keep that information updated as our products and features change. So how do we do this? The same way the rest of the world did. Everybody updated their privacy policy on or around May 25th. We actually did ours in April, late April. But everybody's inboxes in May were flooded with these things, right? Every company that you've ever done business or didn't even realize you were still doing business with sent an updated privacy policy. But the intent here was to take the old legal speak policies and then translate those into something our customers could easily understand, be more transparent than we've ever had before, and really spell out exactly what we're doing with their data. Of course, when we change a policy, we had to notify them, which is what went out in April in our case. Many of you saw that note and saw the privacy policy yourself. In addition, we also added and created a privacy center that is available to all your customers and to you as well, to really go deeper in some of those areas in privacy policy. So this allows us to go deeper into how do we protect data, what as an EU citizen the customers will see differently than they saw before, more information around GDPR, but really a help area and content area for us to continue to make, as we make changes, to keep data refreshed and updated, and a place to customers to go offline to search for items, etc. So this is out there now. Feel free to check it out. Probably answer a lot of your questions here, but the idea is we'll keep this updated as we go. As we get new questions that are common, we'll add them to this area. And then, of course, this is translated in multiple languages for customers in other regions. Under consent requirements here, we had to provide freely given, meaning we couldn't force customers to make a choice one way or the other. Specific and informed, meaning we had to be very specific on what we were asking for. We couldn't just throw in a checkbox that said, give me access to all your stuff. It had to be very specific so the customer made an informed decision. We had to get rid of a lot of those pre-check boxes and opt-in boxes we see all over the internet, right? Sign me up for offers and promos. Those are usually checked under GDPR, and in the EU, we can no longer do that. We'll talk about how we solve that, or some of the ideas that we came up with around that area. We need to allow the customers to change their choice. So if they do opt in or out at the beginning, they have the ability to change it later, come back and change their mind. But ultimately, we wanted to provide a solution with the least revenue impact, because we all know and understand that we like to reach out to our customers. So we played with a couple different options. But priority number one was always compliance, right? Compliance first, but keep revenue in mind. So I'll go over how we did that. So first, the big consent area that we provide is cookies. So these are the cookie banners that you see on most sites. Banner across the bottom saying, hey, we use cookies and other tracking technologies to give you the best experience. Prior to GDPR, prior to the 25th, these banners would have been very, what we call passive. We would have tracked the user anyway, unless they told us not to on the banner. Past May 25th, we had to flip that. Once again, no pre-opt-in activities. So now the customers do not get tracked until they read that banner and click accept. Decline simply closes it. So a little bit different paradigm than before. What we found here is most customers don't even notice it, right? They don't read it. They just continue on. So it's really not getting their consent one way or the other. It's really not being transparent. So we moved to a second model where it's more in your face modal pop-in window. So as customers come to your site for the first time, they will see this pop-in window where it's very clear what we're asking for. We get the customer's consent right out of the gate. They either click accept, decline. They can't ignore it. So we definitely get the customer choice and we get better interaction. They can then also click Manage Settings, which pops up additional options that gives them additional granularity on what categories that they may want to opt in and out of. In this example, advertising, performance, and support are the main buckets, but ultimately give the customer all the flexibility and the choice to tell us how they want to be tracked across our storefronts. So we ran both of these side by side in the test period, just to understand how customers were interacting with it. What we found here on the left with that banner across the bottom is about 30% of the time our customers clicked accept, which means 70% of the time they probably ignored it, didn't click anything. Whereas on the right, with the pop-in box, we found that 65% of the users were actually reading it and giving us the consent, right? So definitely more transparent, getting the customer choice right out of the gate, and then moving on for the rest of the storefront experience. So that's cookies. Took a similar testing approach with email consent, right? We know we all like to reach out to our customers via email, but we have to get consent to do that under GDPR in the EU states or EU countries. Tested two options here. On the left-hand side, the create account page with a checkbox to say, I want to receive personalized offers. And then on the right, a little bit different format, we have the agree or decline button, and that is required before they create the account. Once again, we found on the left-hand side, most users are ignoring that. Only 38% of the time are they checking the box, whereas on the right, we make it a very explicit choice. They tell us agree or decline before they move on to create their account. And 55% of the time we're getting explicit consent in that case. So those two changes I just described, cookies as well as account creation, are available for customers coming from the EU. Rest of world or the other countries operate as they did prior to May 25th. We also have the right to keep it updated. So top left here is not any different than you saw before. Customers go to their MYA control panel and change their consent options. What's new is on the bottom right. So there's a new privacy section, which we'll come back to a few times within the presentation, where customers can come back, in this case, edit those cookies choices that they made in the previous screens. So just another area they come in and change the choice at a later date. Moving on to the third principle, update and erasure. Here we had to not only provide places for customers to keep their information current, but also a new feature to delete or close or de-identify their accounts when they move their services on and upon request. Obviously, there's some data that we can't delete because we have legal obligations to keep it, such as order history for taxes, ICANN data, etc. But the customers can close their account and tell us and ask us to remove the data that we can. This also requires us opting out of communications on behalf of the customer when they close their account. Obviously, they're leaving. They probably don't want to hear from us again, but also provide a deletion request to any additional processing from others that we share with. So if we share with third parties and customer removes their data from our systems and we share that data from third parties, we have the obligation to share that with them as well. So they remove it from their systems. So from the customer experience, once again, top left is no different. There's many areas in our control panels where they can update information that we've collected on them. The new piece is on the bottom right here under the account. We now have an account status where customers could go in, click edit, go into this screen, which will tell them, hey, if you want to close your account, number one, understand that it cannot be undone. On the right, we tell them exactly what we're going to do when they close that account. They click the button. We're going to go out and make sure all their products are closed or deleted or canceled, right? Because we really can't delete information if we still have active subscriptions or services. So once the customer goes and removes or cancels those products, they can then come back in here, click account, click close account, and then we'll honor that request. So that's a new feature just went in place for EU customers on the 25th. And last, portability. As a customer, give you the right to move my services elsewhere. So we need to provide methods to export that information, keep it in an industry standard format so it could be used somewhere else, couldn't be unique to us, and then providing their flexibility in service provider choices. Here, some of this, once again, was already in place. Order history and domains on the right. We already had exports. We'll continue to expand that feature. But really on the left here, the privacy section that's new, there's a button now that customers can click to download your information. Currently, that is just profile information, their personal data in their profile. The idea here is to expand that to bring in those other order histories and domains from a customer experience perspective. Just make it easier with a one-click download. Not necessarily required under GDPR because we have the other exports, but definitely a better user experience. So working to move more and more of that into that download button as we move forward. So that's the customer lens. Now I want to move on to some of the differences and some of the things that you need to know about as resellers, and some of the features in the control center. So principle number 5 was due care, right? We need to safeguard customer data. So within the data that's held within our systems, the reseller program systems, we spend lots of time and energy to ensure the availability of these systems, to make sure they're up, always running, available to the customer so they can come in, change their consent, update their information, close their accounts, etc. We have a 24/7 NOC that ensures that availability. We train our employees that handle calls on your behalf if you opt into our support. We also train employees on data handling for those that do maintenance on your systems. We have a robust security program to keep up with the vulnerabilities and threats and patching. We do all of that for you. But there is additional obligation here for you to understand the data processing addendum and strict adherence to the provisions in that as you use our systems, and especially if you start to remove data from those systems. So you may have noticed in late May, on or about the 21st, we sent out an email, and if you jumped in the control panel shortly after you saw this splash screen, we've extended our terms. This is that data processing addendum. This is where it talks about your obligation, how to process PII, how to encrypt it, what to do if the security incident response, and other type of impact assessments that are now your obligation under GDPR. So definitely familiarize yourself with this. Go back and look through it, read it, understand it, because this is really your commitment to that due care element and to protect customer data within and outside of our systems. We also added reminders along the way in the control center. So on high risk areas, here we have customer management, where you could search for customers. Obviously, this is your customer list. We have a reminder there about customers in the EA, not only to look at marketing consent, but also some of the items mentioned in the DPA, their data processing agreement. Keep in mind in the top right here, customer information as you log in as the client or impersonate your customer to help troubleshoot, that any information you update or capture from there needs to be protected. And then last, just general reporting such as customer sales. A lot of times we share and show personal information there to help you determine who the customer is. Be careful with any exports there or anybody that you share that data with. Minimization. Let's minimize what's asked for, how long it's kept. Very simple here, collect only what's needed. On the screenshot on the right, we've always been pretty thin on the data we collect about customers. It only takes 4 fields to create a record in your storefront: email address, password, and PIN. We have strict and robust retention requirements on the back end, so we're constantly removing data that's no longer needed. We need to ensure we extend these best practices to our partners and vendors. Right? Oftentimes we share information with our vendors and we don't think about the lifespan of that data. So definitely take a look at that for anybody you're sharing outside of your systems. Obviously the things that we're doing on your behalf, we're keeping an eye on, but something else to consider. Under notification, if there is a data issue, we've got some new strict requirements under GDPR. We have to notify supervisory authorities for countries in which the customers are impacted. So if you do have a list that is lost or an issue, we need to quickly evaluate where those customers are from and then follow guidance, which I'll share at the end on how to notify. The notifications are typically required within 72 hours of the issue identified, which is a little bit different than before. There is some exceptions to this. Definitely consult your legal team if you get into the situation on what it means to you and your business. But really what I've heard people are looking for here, at least from a regulator perspective, is consistency across multiple incidents on how you handle and determine if notification is necessary. So if you have multiple events, you need to make sure consistency is in place and also displayed, and you can prove that one incident was treated the same as the other incident, and you've got a repeatable pattern on how to determine to notify or not. And then last tenet, privacy by design. Once again, all the things we learned today and all the features we continue to push and deploy need to be designed with privacy and security requirements in mind. We have ongoing training for all of our engineering teams that bring that to the front. And then we also review our vendors to make sure we've got the appropriate agreements in place, but also they have the practices in place in their systems as well. So to wrap, here's some additional information for you to help you in that GDPR journey. We will post this at the bottom of the video, so you don't need to screen cap or memorize this, but super important. And I'll hit on this one more time, that data processing agreement. If you didn't catch it or read it the first time, here's a link back to it. Definitely want to familiarize yourself with those requirements. GDPR regulation, both the official 350 some pages, if you want to pour through that, but there's also a searchable version that's done very well. You look for certain keywords. European Commission simplification, the ICO website are awesome to kind of give you a one-pager and touch on some of the topics I touched on. The ICO site will give you checklists on the additional things you need to do to become GDPR compliant. And then the working party guidance gives some really good business cases where they take the regulation and break it down into real life, real business scenarios and tell you how it would work under that scenario. So definitely recommend the top links to go through. And then for those that use our WordPress features, if you do move away from our storefront or override our storefront with WordPress, there's some things you're going to have to do, right? Because it's no longer done. We're no longer doing it for you. Privacy policy creation, they've got some tools if you want to expand the privacy policy. We always recommend a hot link back to ours, but that is an option. Cookie banners is probably the most important. If you move away from our storefront, the cookie interaction that we talked about goes away. So you'll want to replicate that in WordPress. Here's a link, tell you how to do that. And then last, on the very bottom, there's a bunch of GDPR plugins for WordPress. Some are free, some are paid, but they're doing a really good job keeping new features going for WordPress under GDPR. So we'll post this again, but wanted to leave you with some links to do some research offline. So thanks for having me today. If you have any questions, check out our Privacy Center. Once again, go back to that data processing agreement. Tons of information there you need to know. Hit privacy at GoDaddy if you have any questions. And last, reminder to run any of the decisions you make by your legal team, just to make sure it's appropriate for your particular business or your particular venture. So that is it for me.
Great. Thanks so much, Todd, for that update. And so just as a reminder, as Todd mentioned, we will be posting these links again. And also, we're going to save all questions and answers on today's webinar for the end. So with that, I'll hand it over to Manish, who's going to talk about domains. So Manish, if you want to take control of the screen.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Manish Vaidya. I'm a Senior Product Manager on the domains team. I want to share with everyone some of the updates that we've made to the product portfolio as a result of GDPR and how that flows through the system. So firstly, I want to point out that one of the big changes that happened with GDPR is the way whois records are displayed. What I'm showing here is example whois record for a domain name that you would see if you go to any server right now. Over in the GDPR impacted regions, as part of the regulation, a lot of the information on the whois is redacted. That's part of the privacy law that has been put in place. So, this is a seemingly simple change, but had a lot of downstream impact, particularly on the way the value for our privacy products comes into play. To still provide a really valuable add-on to the domain for our users, What we did was take the privacy product and make it even better. And what we essentially did is created a new domain privacy and protection product, which combines the best of our privacy product and our ownership protection product and makes it available in one package. And then the basic privacy protection, of course, is available to users as part of the GDPR updates. Now, I just want to go in quickly on what exactly is ownership protection, and this is straight out of our help section. You can go read up all the details, but really what it does is puts a level of protection on the domain that's really valuable to users. It prevents malicious transfers of your domain. It puts a sort of an insurance plan on the domain. So if for whatever reason the user forgets to renew the domain or the billing method fails through, we will renew it for an additional year and hold on to the domain for them. So lots of really wonderful protections that are built into this product and are available to users as a part of this full protection and privacy bundle that now we are offering with the domains. So then the question was, what about the existing customers? And the two things that we really wanted to focus on is provide a good user experience to our existing customers and also a lot of information. So on the morning of the 25th, the customers who had ownership protection on their domains received this email, which highlighted the fact that we are actually going to upgrade the users who just have plain privacy to this full privacy and protection bundle. And we are doing that as a free upgrade, and the renewal will be exactly at the same price as what they were paying for privacy. So there is no sticker shock down the line. There is no cost to the users. It's a free upgrade to a much better package for the users, which, as I mentioned, includes the protection free of charge. And the email clearly stated that we were going to upgrade the users, but if they didn't want to be upgraded, they could click on a link and opt out of the program. Again, want to be very fair to our users, provide them complete clarity, as was mentioned earlier in the webinar. If the users chose to just take the upgrade, they don't have to do anything. If they decided that they wanted to opt out, we provided a comprehensive experience for the users. And the click on the email that I just showed you would bring them to a dedicated page which we built on the website. And what it does is it lists each and every domain that they have in their portfolio. And on a per domain basis or for the entire portfolio, they can choose to opt out of the upgrade. And this page will let them do that for about 3-week period, where they can go in and say, yeah, great, thanks for giving me the upgrade, but I really don't want it. At the end of that period, we will cancel the upgrade for them and refund whatever money they had paid towards the privacy product, backdated to May the 25th, so as if they canceled on May the 25th. We also wanted to be, again, as I mentioned, really give the opportunity to the users to opt out if they don't want this upgrade. So beyond this 3-week period, for an additional 60 days, they can come back to the same page. The content, the link will be the same. We will display the domains that they have been upgraded for. And again, on a per domain basis or for all the ones that they have upgraded, they can just choose to opt out. And no matter when they do it during that 2-month period, we will refund their privacy product payment backdated to May 25th. So again, following the principles of full information disclosure, giving the users a better product, and giving them enough ample opportunity to opt out if they choose to do so. So that program is in effect right now. So far, since the May 25th, we've had less than 1% of people, of domain owners and with their individual portfolios opt out of this program, less than 1%. So, you know, we can speculate that because they got a lot of email on GDPR, maybe, you know, they're still absorbing all the material, or, you know, they've gone through and looked at the domain protection features, and, you know, for the same price, it's a good protection to have on top of the privacy. So they're choosing to keep it. In any case, the service is still live. They can go to the link and opt out if they want. Again, as I mentioned, we'll keep it live for 2 more months with the same feature set. One of the other changes we did is to opt out of ownership protection would have required users to enable 2-factor auth. We've taken off that requirement, so for the users to go in and go through this link and just cancel the update. They don't have to go through the setup and cancellation of 2-factor auth. We've also further downstream reduced the holding period on the 2-factor auth. It used to be 72 hours, but now they can opt out of the update as soon as they enable 2FA. If they want to do it through the control center in the product itself, or they can just use this link. So again, a couple of things I want to reiterate. We have updated the ownership protection and privacy product. We have provided a free upgrade to our current users. We provided an opt-out methodology, and we believe it's overall a good offering for our users in the GDPR regions. So that's all I wanted to go through now. I'll take questions offline, and you can also follow up with Chelsea or refer to the Reseller Control Center for more details on this program.
All right. Great. Thanks so much, Manish, for the update. So that concludes our new business portion of the webinar. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Chelsea's section, and she's going to talk about the updates to the product side on the reseller platform.
Christina, are you going to share your screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. There you go. All right. So as you've already heard so far, May brought a lot of changes due to privacy compliance. So I'm sure you've already seen a lot of it. I'm going to be going over a bit of the pricing information that Manish was just referring to about the privacy product and domain ownership protection. That'll be in the next slide. But for now, I know you've already seen the reseller agreement and the RCC. It just details the new addendum around handling data and doing so appropriately. Changes on the storefront. There are reseller plans now available on the plugin and APIs. So those super resellers out there, you can now use the plugin to build a new storefront that you can build it completely custom. We are going to be sending out a notification to all supers. We are planning on end-of-lifing the very old and outdated super storefront. So if you're wanting to have something custom, you now have that availability. Then when we take a look at products, we launched the Plesk Starter Hosting product at the end of May. So there has been a cPanel starter hosting plan for a very long time, and now we just got the Plesk Starter Hosting. So that was launched at the end of May. Looking at June, that's that new super reseller storefront. It is going to be a very slimmed down version, just like the new storefront compared to the old one. It doesn't have all the marketing information, so that way we aren't competing with your sites. If you're wanting to build custom, it will just have the plan names, bullet points about what comes with it, and that's pretty much it. So if you are wanting to build your own, again, use that plugin or API and build your own custom one if you're wanting that. We are also bringing the Reseller Control Center International. So this affects really the super resellers again out there. If you have customers that are going to be in different markets, they're going to be able to experience the Reseller Control Center in their preferred language. So that is launching at the end of June. So at that time, we'll be fully internationalized. So help articles, everything that's going to be all on the docket for you guys. Looking further out into July, that's when we're going to be changing a little bit of our onboarding. We have several items going on around that, but both in the experience of the Reseller Control Center, as well as getting videos that are more helpful for you. And if you have questions about certain aspects of reseller that it might be easier to understand, we want to really make sure that not only our new resellers, but all of our current resellers that might have questions on kind of standard procedures like commissions or something, that we answer all your questions. Another very exciting thing that I am pumped to announce to you, and I'm hoping that you're just as excited to hear, Website Builder and Website Backup are launching in July. That is the Go Central product and the new Website Backup product. We are planning on doing our webinar with them at the beginning of August to do a run through of this is what the product looks like, this is how it operates, everything there. So we'll be able to answer all your questions. But that is coming up and we're really excited about it. We also have in August that we're going to be having SSL on custom domains. We'll be sharing more information about that as we close in, and we'll be trying to get some beta users and stuff in July, but it'll be launching large scale in August. And we're trying to make it where you may have to do some work if you don't have your domain name in the exact same account, things like that. There might be some work involved, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you. You click a button and you get an SSL. It just happens. But again, there might be some work if you don't have the domain in the same account. So that's just what's coming soon. Now I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the privacy items. So as Todd went over on the new standard storefront, there's the cookie pop-up. And so we've already gone over that part. The making a purchase of the domain, the new customer, when they're purchasing, they're going to see if they are in a market that's affected by GDPR, they're going to be seeing only the domain ownership protection bundle, and they won't see a privacy option at all. And then with the private registration customers that are affected by GDPR, they are going to be moved to the domain ownership protection bundle, and that's going to be free of charge. And renewal for them is going to be locked in at the rate that they paid for privacy. So I just posted in the RCC that ways that you can go check out the pricing and price out the domain ownership bundle that's going to be on the news or through the domain purchase path. So feel free to check it out. We did make sure that that no matter what the minimum a customer could have paid is more than what the base buy rate is. So even if your customer is automatically getting that renewal at that same price that they paid for privacy, you are still making at least a small commission. So want to make sure that nobody's going negative there. So that wraps kind of my little add-ons to what has already been presented for GDPR. So I'll take a look if there's any questions about the product or anything else that has been presented today. Feel free to post your questions. Otherwise, to any of our panelists, have there been any questions for you that you'd like to clarify live?
So I can answer the one on the cookies on the secure server and your custom domain. Yeah, it's the same site to the customer, and you can share the cookies. For example, if you have market, if you want to read what market cookie was set or something like that.
I think that that question was in particular to the agreement to use cookies. So when a customer from a affected region gets a pop-up on the custom site that says, hey, is it okay that we track your cookies? And they say yes. When they get to a secure server page, are we going to ask again?
We do write a policy cookie on the secure server, and we'll check that cookie. So we can do some more testing on that flow, but it should be working. If it's not working as expected, go ahead and call our support, and we can troubleshoot any issues there.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Please post them on the Q&A, and we'll answer them live in the next few minutes that we have remaining. Okay, we have a couple of questions that have just come in.
Right. Let me take the one on transfers. Yes, that is correct, that the transfers no longer require the transaction ID and security code. Removing that is a part of the GDPR compliance, but we have been looking at simplifying the overall process and making it easier. And there has been conversation at ICANN around using auth code as the main token for initiating and authorizing transfers. So the changes are all along the lines of both GDPR and the overall changes to the transfer process.
All right. We have one more question. I think it's more of a comment, but it says, since GoDaddy has updated their fonts, the font palette in the branding beta brand now shows the new GoDaddy font instead of the font show in the preview. Does anyone want to address that? All right.
And I'm sorry that I can take a look at this. So I would like to know where you are seeing that. We are trying to go through each of the different pages and products to make sure that they are updated to use what we internally call UX Core 2. That is where it shows reseller branding, the palette, font, logos, everything should be updated using that. There are some products that are kind of at a in-between stage, but I am actively working with all the different teams on trying to get that going through so they don't have any hard-coded GoDaddy Boeing font on the page. When it is on UX Core 2, it should be pulling the font that you selected or defaulting to a base font like Arial or something. So if you can reach out to support so they can take a look, and then I know where, if it's an issue on a page that has been moved over, or if it's an issue on a page that that is still has a ETA.
Great, thanks, Chelsea. There is a question about where are the Q&As from the previous webinars located. We will let you know as well. We'll send it out with the resources and links that Todd had provided earlier today.
So I do see a question around, do we always have to change domain names for checkout? Is it possible to check out with the reseller store's domain name? That is not possible. It needs to be on secureserver.net. That the cart experience, the actual checkout, needs to be on that because that is who we have all of our processors aware that that is the domain we operate on. If we were to open it up, it means that we would have to open it up to any domain out there can process, and it ends up being a very, very large security risk. So, so there are no plans on allowing a reseller store domain on the cart page. That is going to be on secure server, just like once the customer logs in, they're on secure server. So. All right, I think that's about it.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining the webinar, and thank you to everyone for speaking on our updates. Again, this webinar is being recorded, so we'll post that recording. And just to give you a heads up, the next webinar, which is the first Wednesday of July, is actually the 4th of July, so we are going to plan to have that webinar the day before, which is the 3rd of July. If anything changes on that, we will let you know. And thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.